Welcome to The Explainer. Sometimes a story lands on a journalist's desk that is just too weird to be true. And today we're diving into one of those cases, a bizarre tale of deception that became an absolute legend in the newsroom.
So, picture this, a busy Kuwaiti newsroom. The story kicks off when an imam just walks right in. Now, he's not there for a press conference or anything. Nope. He's got a shocking story to tell, and he makes a very direct demand to the crime reporter who's on duty. Okay, so for a crime reporter, this is like hitting the jackpot, right? I mean, a religious leader getting attacked inside a mosque? That's a huge headline. The journalist was, as you can imagine, immediately hooked.
So the imam lays out his whole story, and honestly, it sounds pretty convincing at first. He paints this picture of being viciously attacked out of nowhere by, of all people, an elderly man. And he says he's done everything right, filed a police report, he's got evidence, and now he just wants the press to put some pressure on to make sure justice is served.
But, right from the get-go, something just felt a little off to the journalist. Think about it. Reporters usually have to dig for stories like this. It's pretty rare for a victim to just stroll into the newsroom and demand you cover their story. So that alone, that was the very first red flag. All right, so the journalist decides he needs to look into this a little more. And where does he start? With that photographic evidence the imam was so proud of. And let me tell you, this is the exact moment this serious, dramatic crime story starts to turn into, well, a comedy. Yeah, so it turns out the photos weren't taken during the attack at all. Not even close. They were a really, really bad staged photo shoot. The imam actually admitted that after the whole thing was over and the attacker was gone, he got his son to come to the empty mosque and take pictures of him lying dramatically on the floor, pretending to be hurt. Okay, so now the journalist is thinking, whoa, there's a fantastic story here, just not the one this guy is telling me. So he does something really clever. He suggests they go back to the mosque. So the imam can reenact the scene and show him exactly what went down, all for the sake of getting the article right, of course. And this is where it just gets completely absurd. They get to the mosque and the imam puts on this full-blown performance. I mean, he throws himself on the ground, he's groaning dramatically, yelling, "Ah!" It was like he was auditioning for a movie. And right then and there, the journalist knew for sure. This whole thing was an act. So, the big question is, who was this supposed attacker? The journalist, now fully invested, does a little digging. And he finds him. He tracks down the other person in this drama, the elderly man who supposedly carried out this vicious attack. And this is where the story just completely flips on its head. The vicious assailant? Turns out he's a guy in his 70s who needs a cane to walk. His story was totally different. He said he was just resting in the mosque when the imam came over and rudely told him to get out. They had a bit of an argument, and the old man tapped him, tapped him with his cane. And what happened next? The imam immediately faked this huge, dramatic fall to the ground. So now, with both sides of the story on the table, the imam's whole elaborate performance, it all suddenly clicked into place. This was never, ever about an assault.
No, the real goal here was simple. Extortion. Plain and simple. The imam was trying to use the threat of a police report and, bad press to basically shake down an old man for cash.
And what was the price to make this whole fake assault charge go away? A cool 3,000 Kuwaiti dinars. The police report wasn't about justice, it was just leverage. It was a tool to force the old man's hand and make him pay up.
Well, in a way, the imam actually got what he wanted. His story did make it into the newspaper, just probably not in the way he was hoping. Because now the journalist had a way better, way more interesting story to tell. The story of the scam itself. So he wrote the whole thing up. But instead of a story about a poor, victimized imam, he exposed the entire fraudulent scheme, complete with all the hilarious details. The terrible staged photos, the over-the-top reenactment, the whole shebang. And the public's reaction? Oh, it was immediate, and it was huge. The phones at the newsroom were ringing off the hook. But people weren't calling to offer sympathy. They were calling because they were absolutely dying with laughter. The story was a total sensation, not because of some fake crime, but because the scam was just so bold and so ridiculously bad. Back in the newsroom, this thing became an instant classic. Seriously, the story of the acting imam was the running joke for weeks. It turned into a real newsroom legend,
The perfect example of a story that starts out one way and ends up somewhere you never ever could have guessed.
It's just such a great reminder that you've got to be skeptical, right? Especially when a story seems a little too perfect, when it's just handed to you on a silver platter. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the most unbelievable lie you've ever been told?